go. Let's get this all rocking and rolling. Fix my little monitor there. Open up Twitch, see what's good. Make sure we're all working. Should be. I haven't changed anything since yesterday. Perfect. All right, so as everybody knows, today we're going to do a recap of my league game. I told everybody I would yesterday. Yesterday we talked about witch cult stuff with the new detachment and how the infantry feels a lot better, but nothing else really feels better. And today we're going to dive into my game against Imperial Knights. Before we start with that, again, big thank you to my YouTube and Patreon supporters. Everybody has been very supportive. I appreciate it. It does allow me to run more events because I'm able to. Hey, what's up, Dan? Yeah. I spent a good part of this morning doing a lot of different things. Woke up and had homework because I'm finishing up my college. I just got started classes back up, so I spent about 2 or 3 hours this morning doing schoolwork, and then took care of some stuff around the house and stuff like that. So I figured we'd do a little bit later stream today. And then tomorrow we may be doing a pretty early either stream or video. I don't know which yet. Just kind of depends on how the schedule looks. But yeah, so I had a game against Imperial Knights. Before I dig in, Dan, also one of my patrons, so big shout out, big thank you again, because that does allow me to get terrain, stuff like that, secure venues for events that we run, things of that nature. Schools for nerds, it is, and I'm kind of a nerd, and that's okay. And it's an English degree. If I wasn't already nerdy enough, like I'm literally going to school to study my native language, so. That being said, sorry, I just something caught me out of my peripheral and it kind of derailed me for a second. Outside of that, I will try to get some old world content up this week. I will have a recap of the second round of the Blood Bowl this week. Coffin Kickers should be playing the Inlandit Sunbathers on Friday, so I should be able to get that up. I may be doing a Sigmar tournament this weekend. I was supposed to run an event, but we had a bunch of drops at the last minute, so I'm going to have to cancel my event. But I have a buddy who's running a Sigmar event, so I may poke out that way instead, since I was already planning on being out all day. And if I do, I'll probably just take in all my squigs because it's funny, and we'll do like a tournament recap like we did last time. So that's cool. But that's not what everybody's here for. Everybody's here to hear me talk about sexy space elves, so let's do it. All right. First, we're going to talk about his list, then we'll go through my list, and then we'll talk about the mission. I am an return. Well, I hope you have fun at school. I do have fun at school. Right now, I am in a literature theory class and then a 300 level English class, and I'm about it. Like, the theory class, I could take or leave. I'm not big on theory. It's a lot of read this, what is the symbolism? Read that, what is the symbolism? Which I don't hate. I'm not opposed to it. But when I'm forced to do it, I'm just like, so his list. Now I'm going to read a bunch of stuff and it's not going to mean anything to me because I know almost nothing about knights. Even after having played against them, I still know almost nothing about knights. So it's just one of those where I'm just like, yeah, all right, man. He was just like, well, this guy does this. And I'm like, you bet it does. And then it died. So that's just kind of the nature of the game, I guess. Characters, he's got a Knight Crusader. It's got the Avenger Gatling Cannon, a Heavy Flamer, a Questoris Heavy Stubber, a Storm Spirit. So this was the really shooty knight. I can tell by looking at that, like, okay, that's what that one is. The Paladin has the Chainsword, and then the Preceptor also had a Chainsword. So you had like one super shooty knight, and then two kind of like Swiss Army knife type of deals where they can shoot and they can fight and they can do a little bit of everything. And again, I just don't know anything about knights. I've only gotten to play a handful of games against them because we don't have a ton of players in the local community that play Imperial Knights. We've got a couple Chaos Knights players, and I've played more games against Chaos Knights than I have Imperial Knights. And then a lot of Armigers. Let's see. Autocannons, autocannons, autocannons. One melee dude, and it was like a melee Melta, and then I think two of them. Okay. And again, it's one of those like by and large, he didn't get to interact with me a ton, and when he did, it was rough. Like I picked up things, but I was just like, nah, dog, that ain't me. Uh, I don't think so. And so this was my first time playing him. Super nice kid. I really had a good time with him. He was really surprised at how fast our game went. And I think we finished in like 2.5 hours. And he was like, "Wow, that didn't take long at all." And I'm like, "Nah, man, I know my stuff. Like I know what I'm doing." I said, "You clearly know what you're doing with your army," and he did. He played it very well. But he was just like he's used to playing with some slower players, so it was just like, man, I forgot that games could go that fast. Um, that being said, like I said, I had a good time with him. A lot of fun. Very, very solid opponent in terms of what are you doing over there? I think somebody's sneaking pictures. No, okay. She just had this guilty look on her face, and it was just like, what are you doing? But no, that's because I had it pulled up. So, anyway, sorry. So yeah, so again, he knew his army very well. He hasn't really played against Drukari because I'm effectively the only Drukari player locally. There's a couple people who dabble, but I'm the only person that's just like for the last 2 to 3 years, that's been my main. And I actually just played his brother the round before. He was the Marine player that I played. So they were like colluding. Like, what do I do when I play against Chris? What do I do when I play against Chris? And one of the things his brother was going to tell you, or what he said, Krishna, that's the brother that I played. He said, Chris is going to leave the middle of the board wide open. And it's going to look real tempting. And you're going to look at the middle of the board and you're going to be like, yeah, man, there's nothing there. I'm going to go take it. He said, don't do it. It's a trap. As soon as you do it, the game's over. He's won. That's it. Don't do it. And I tell you, Alex is his name. Alex did a great job of sticking to that advice. There were times where he genuinely made, I don't know if I would call them mistakes, but he made some decisions based off of like, nah, dog, I'm not going to the middle of the board. You will not bait me to the middle of the board. That ain't me. So it was kind of funny, almost like he overcommitted to not doing it, but that's okay. So now we're going to talk about my list. We've been through it a few times. It's really funny. I enjoy it. I don't know that it's like super competitive, but it helps that I've just played a ton of games with it and just a ton of games in 10th with this army. So I'm able to kind of manipulate things and get things where I need them to be. We've got the Archon. He gives me the extra pain token when he kills a unit that's on an objective. We got Drazar. We all know what he really is called. I'm gonna try to not say it on stream this time. Uh, I think it came out a couple times yesterday, and then afterward I was like, oh well, YouTube's probably gonna make sure this one never gets ad revenue. We do have Lilith, and then we have the Succubus. She's got her blast pistol, and then she's got the no Overwatch. And it's one of those in retrospect. I don't know that I need the no Overwatch on the Succubus, but it's only 15 points, maybe 20. So I don't know what I would do with those 20 points because I'm at 2,000 on the dot. And of course, the Witch's blast pistol, phantasm grenade launcher, blah, 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 blah. The main thing here is that I have 4 Venoms. And all the witches are in Venoms, and I'm kind of mixed on that interaction. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, it's not terrible, but man, I'll be damned if they just don't really kill much. Obviously, the one with the Succubus and the one with Lilith do, because the Succubus and Lilith are almost a full, like, 3 models, 4 models worth of attacks on their own, just because they're hitting on 2s, they have sustain baked in, so it's one of those, like, by and large, they're worth 2 to 3 witches by themselves easily. But I feel like witches are really better in 10-man units and in a raider than they are broken up in venoms. But what it does give me is it gives me some nice utility. And I've talked about this before. Like I've got basically a Raider or a Venom, which is 70 points, and then I have 45 points worth of witches. So I have 115 points worth of models that can move 14 inches, disembark, do some bullshit like investigate signals, deploy teleport homers behind enemy lines, etc. So it's one of those where at the end of the day, it's not terrible to break them up that way. You just have to accept that, like, by and large, they're not going to kill a ton unless you get them into the right things, and that's okay. I do have two Raiders. One is carrying Drazar and friends, and then the other one's carrying Archon and friends, and it's all Incubi. I have 0 Kabalites in this list, and that's arguably also not like the money play. Like I went into this league and I was like, man, I don't want to bring Kabalites. I'm gonna just leave them out of my list. And damn, dude, one game in, I was just like, shit, I'm gonna need Kabalites. And then the second game, I was like, Jesus, this would have been a lot easier if I'd have had some Kabalites. But at the end of the day, I'm making it work. The round 3 matchup's going to be interesting. It's and I'll pull that list up later when we're done. But it's Thousand Suns, and I have only, again, I haven't played against them in a bit, but the opponent is a really solid player, very good, and also knows his T Suns pretty well. So it's one of those, like, it'll be a good test. It'll let me know where I'm at. Right now, the hardest matchups for me have been into Death Guard. I would say Orcs, but the Orc player I play the most often is one of the best Orc players, period, hands down. So it's like, that's just a tough matchup because he's a great player. Any other time I've smacked into Orcs, it's not been a contest, but I also know that army really well. So it's just one of those kind of interesting things. And I will say the last couple games against John is his name. The last couple games against John have had some really wonky and weird interactions, and I'm not blaming those. Like he beat me, but like both games he's had D6 damage uh explosions, deadly demise. Both games he's had D6 damage, deadly demise, almost squad wipe whole squads. And I'm just like, man, like I can't do anything about that, you know. So it's just I've just had some weird games with him lately. They've been funny, don't get me wrong. But they've been tough, and we've both had to put a lot of big brain power into them. But anyway, we've got one Kronos. We've got the 20 Incubi I was talking about. We got some Mandreezes, a Ravager. It does have 3 Dark Lances. I'm thinking I was running the Disintegrator Cannons right before this detachment dropped, and I think I like the Disintegrator Cannons better. But the Dark Lances are fine. Like, I'm glad I had the Dark Lances in this matchup specifically, but next matchup I'm going to probably wish I had the Disintegrator Cannons. So it's one of those like, oh well. And then I've got some Scourges, and I'm running all Dark Lances right now. I was running a unit with Haywire and a unit with Dark Lances, and I'll probably be going back to that outside of the league just because I just like it better. And honestly, I'm tempted to just drop Scourges completely and just bring Ravagers. I think the Ravagers are like 5 points more, and they do put out less shots, but they are ballistic skill 3. But if I could bring like 1 Disintegrator Cannon and 2 Dark Lance Ravagers, or I could bring like 1 of each, I just feel like that'll be fine. I'm just trying to play some different things is the main thing. And then I've got my homies, the Talos. I will just not drop those out of my list. The only thing I would consider doing is running the Strength 7 swings on them instead of the Strength 8. The Strength 8 is Weapon Skill 4, which is kind of poopy. I'd rather have Weapon Skill 3. It only goes to -2. I don't know. It's such a weird thing. Like, these things need to be Strength 10. Like, the gauntlets just need to be Strength 10 if they hit on 4s. And, you know, I will die on that hill. Like, going from Strength 7 to Strength 8 is not worth hitting on 4s. It's just not. You know, give it one less attack and make them hit on 3s. Like, I don't know. I again, don't want to get into it. Like, it's a frustration, but it's a minor complaint. I do run Haywire on those because of the volume. I can get 4 Haywire shots, and they're twin linked, and you don't get a save if you have the vehicle keyword. The Heat Lances would probably feel pretty good also. The only downside of the Heat Lances is it's a single shot per. So, I'm not averaging a lot of good quality hits. Whereas, like, when I empower them, I can average 3 hits, right? Because you get 4 shots, hitting on 4s, that's 2 hits, re-rolling, that's an additional hit, that's 3 hits. And wounding vehicles on 4s, you're going to average about 9 damage every time you shoot a vehicle. So it's one of those, like, oh darn, this is so much better because you just don't get a save. Where they do kind of suck is when you hit something like Nids or Demons, where they've got the greater Demons, and you're just like, cool, man. Oh well. Uh, Nothing I can do about it. That being said, those are the lists. Let's talk about the mission. And the mission was, let me pull it up here. I've got it over on my phone too. I did tactical, he did tactical. So it was GW layout 4, sweeping engagement, as you can see on the screen. Can you guys see that all right? It looks like it might be. Yeah, you could probably see that okay. Let's zoom it out a little bit. Actually, let's do this. Just ignore that. Boop. Boop. Oh. How do I want to do this? Bam. Save as. Let's just put it in downloads. Okay. Now. Open with. We just want to open it with Chrome. That would be neat. Can we do that? We should be able to. That's fine. We'll just open it with photos. Just once. All right. Now, because now I can just drop it here, and then everybody can see it a little bit better. Perfect. Yeah, there we go. So it's sweeping engagement. Vox static, which, gosh, I don't even remember what that one is. I just played it. I think it's the one where your command rerolls cost 2 CP. 99% sure. Let's double check that before I swear to it. Yep, the command reroll and the new orders both cost 2 CP. And so that was an interesting one. And that's the one thing I'm trying to do for the leagues that I organize is I try to get away from just the GT missions and open it up to anything. And then we had Sites of Power, and that's the one where you get points if your characters are on objectives. Like you have to control them, etc. Blah, 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 blah. We get it. So that's the mission, right? I ended up getting first turn. And let's see. Let me grab. Oh, that's what I need. I need my pan. Because everybody loves my pan. Boop. There we go. Boop. Hey, what's up, Caleb? All right, we don't need that right now. Okay. Bam. Bam. Is that the highlighter? That's the highlighter. Get out of here, you goose. Okay, so round 1 and deployments. I did put a Venom kind of here. And then just one with regular witches. And then most of my stuff was just like back in this corner. I think I had something here. In this mission of reroll, it goes up to 3, buddy, because it just says it costs 1 additional command point. Yup. And that was a discussion we had before the game, my opponent and I, But honestly, my Archon spends most of the time in the transport, so I don't ever even remember that I have that. Because, like, if he's on the table, he's probably dying. That's kind of my approach with it. So most of my stuff was here. I did slap my mandrakes. I'm trying to remember exactly where I put them. I actually just I think I just slammed him in a big line right here. And it was mostly so because he had a knight over here somewhere. And so it was one of those, I didn't want him to be able to move up and then just shoot me or get into the middle of the table. Like I was trying to move block him as best I could. But I ended up getting first turn. So let's clear some of this out. He did have a knight here, a big fatty. And all I did was take my Ravager, bust it out, throw some shots. I knew I was going to lose the Ravager. That's okay. I wasn't super worried about it. I think I put 6 damage on him, 8 damage on him. I think it was 8, and then he got 2 Feel No Pains. Then my Mandrakes, they cleansed, and then I did something over, not there. I got my Witches out, hopped them on the objective. They cleansed, or I might have even just flown the Venom right over here. But basically, I just kind of moved up, cleansed this objective, cleansed this one in the middle, and then with as little resources as possible, dumped Overwhelming Force and gained a CP. It was the most boring of turn ones you could have, and that's okay because that's what we want. At least that's been my approach with this army, is that my turn 1 and my turn 2 are going to be as boring as possible, because once turn 3 comes, I'm hitting the gas, and then hopefully, you know, we can get where we need to go. He pulled Assassination, which he did end up scoring, but not on his turn. He ended up scoring it by killing one of my characters. I don't even remember which one. Maybe it was Drazar. Did you reserve your warlord to deny the killing of him and the 5? No, not at all. I just kept my warlord in the boat and kept him really far away from him and made him come to me if he wanted to come get him. So turn 2 came up. He ended up keeping. He dumped Engage, kept Assassinate. I drew no prisoners capture enemy outpost. He had a knight right here, one of the big ones. I dumped some shooting into it, knocked it down a little bit, and then I sent Drazar and 10 Incubi into it. And he picked up that knight. I think I did. I had already damaged him, but I think the Incubi and Drazar together ended up doing 28 total damage, because I rolled 2 or 3 wound rolls of 6 when Drazar swung out. Because I was just nah, dude, I am just using the dev wounds. I don't care. And I massacred that night. And he was just oh shit. That's no joke. Because they don't really get an invul in melee, so it was just cool, I'm gonna empower him. It's neg 3. How many 6-ups can you make? And then how many 6-up Feel No Pains can you make? And the answer was not enough. And that's where he got the Assassinate, because then Drazar and friends were just kind of because the way I charged, I think I got out here, and then they were able to consolidate, I think, and tag a little knight here. He threw some cheeky shots at it, but at the same time, it was just cool, they're gonna die. I don't care. It is what it is. And then my Mandrakes were still just kind of hanging out here. And then, like I said, he just wouldn't touch the middle of the board. I think that turn I scored 6 in primary. He scored 6 in primary. He ended up outscoring me by 6 points in primary. But I think turn 3 was the big, weird turn. Because when turn 3 came up, I got Investigate Signals, and then I got Secure No Man's Land. And I was able to take these witches here, and then something here, and get 2 Investigate Signals. So there was 4 points. Secure No Man's Land, I grabbed one of the objectives for 2 points, and that was fine. I wasn't super worried about it. And then, again, I got 6 primaries in round 3, but he only got 3. And that was because one of the things I did, I left that's what it was. I took the Venom down here to investigate signals because like I just kept kind of like moving off and on this objective. It was kind of a weird interaction where I would like move them up, hide, and then if he'd get close, I'd like go run back into the Venom and just be like, cool, now you can't get me. And then so he ended up getting a knight here, a little one. And then I just advanced 10 witches onto the objective and was like, cool, or 5 witches. Now I have 10 OC. I beat you. You don't score any points. So it was just one of those, like, I just kept kind of like ducking in and out of that objective to just kind of frustrate him. And so his turn came up. He scored 3 in primaries. And this was to me like the big pivotal moment because he drew area denial and he drew teleport homers. But at that point, he had 2 big knights left. And the only thing that could get to the middle of the board for both was area denial. He had a little knight that was back here. And even if he auto 6, or even if he rolled a 6 on the advance, like he was a half inch outside of wholly within 6. So he just physically couldn't get there. And when he couldn't get there with the little knight, he was like, I don't want to go there with the big knight because it's just going to die, which is fair. It would have. It absolutely would have. So what ended up happening was he sent his big knight down here, and then he just kind of like, I think he ended up moving this like back here to shoot at something down in this lane, but he just scored 0 points in secondaries that turn. And that was a big, big shift because he gave up 8 points because he was like, man, that thing's going to die. And that's fair. Like I said, I definitely get that thought process. And then he ended up sending like his other big knight out this way. And then turn 4 came around. I drew defense stronghold. He couldn't get any, like, there's nothing he could do about it. Like, nothing. I still had my mandrakes. I think I had 1 mandrake left. And I was able to just like walk him right here and be like, cool, here's my area denial. Uh, like I used my auto pass morale on that so I could just walk him over, grab the objective, area denial, because he wouldn't go anywhere near the middle of the board. And then he had a knight right here that he was using. He moved it in here. I'm trying to remember why. Like he was in here and he was shooting, I think, scourges. Because I had 2 units of scourges on this objective. And he was just like, all right, I'm going to shoot the scourges. And it was just like, yeah, all right, dude. But he ended up splitting fire, which is like how I got down to 1 mandrake. Because he shot 1 gun at the mandrakes, he shot 1 gun at a venom, and he shot 1 gun at scourges. And I think he killed the unit of scourges, but I still had 1 on the objective. And then he killed the venom. But then, like, oh well, like I just have witches out now, and I can go run them on an objective. And then I had 1 mandrake. So like I said, like I just kind of ran that mandrake here. My Archon spent almost the entire game in his Raider right here. Like that's what he did. I had a Kronos that was kind of like camped here most of the game. Like it would kind of sit here behind this footprint. And then it would like bounce out here if I needed it to, if I didn't think he was going to be able to shoot at it with anything. But once that knight hit right there, I moved my Raider, I disembarked my boys, and I spent a 1 CP. And then I spent a pain token to let him reroll charges. And then I charged into him. And then I spent my last pain token in the fight phase. And wouldn't you know it, 10 incubi, and the Archon will also pick up a big knight. Turns out wounding on 5s is just fine when you're re-rolling with 35 dice, like re-rolling hits and wounds. And it was just one of those where you're just like, oh my god, these things are terrible. And I was like, yeah, they're pretty funny. I didn't have the command points though to put him back in the boat, but I didn't really need him to at this point. I think he was down to like 2 little knights and 1 big one. Over here, he had a big old meaty knight, and I slammed 5 witches and Lilith into that. And again, Lilith goes from neg 2 to neg 3 for being attached, neg 4 for being empowered. And so, like, I was like, cool, I'm going to use her once per game ability. We're going to go charge her knight. And, fives are just going to do damage, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, like, my 12 attacks did, I think it was like 20, 22 hits, something like that, because she sustained 2. And then I ended up rolling really hot on the wound rolls. I think I put like 6 or 8 damage through. And he was like, oh, well, what's the AP? And I was like, yeah, neg 4. And he was like, oh. So he just got his feel no pain. And then the witches chipped another 4 damage, I think, onto him. And it was like, I think that was his shooting night. Because, like, when he swung back, he didn't really kill anything. Or maybe, oh, he whiffed real hard. That's what it was. Because I had knocked him into his bottom bracket. Because what I was trying to do was charge him, hope I could knock him into his bottom bracket, hope I could live through the swing backs, and then just keep him engaged so that he couldn't go move to another objective. He couldn't fall back and do anything. And then he could potentially fail that battle shock. And it ended up working. I think he killed all but one of the witches because he just whiffed because he was now hitting on 4s. And so it was just like, 4s, 2s. And then I made some, 4-up invulns. And he killed 4 witches. It left Lilith and 1 witch. And then, in his next turn, he was just kind of like, shit. Like, there's nothing I can do. His turn, he drew Defense Stronghold, which he got. He drew Cleanse, but at that point he just couldn't give up anything. Like, he needed his units to interact with the game. So he ended up not being able to cleanse. Round 5 came around. I got deployed teleport homers. I was able to get in his deployment zone fairly easily. I don't even remember with what scourges. My other unit of scourges just flew from here into there. And then I got Bring It Down. And that's actually, so turn 5 is actually when I killed the Big Knight. Looking at this, sorry. But turn 5, killed the Big Knight, got 6 points on Bring It Down, got 5 points on Deploy Teleport Homers, got 6 points on primaries. And at that point, like, I had scored enough that there was literally nothing he could do to come back. Like, we got to his turn, he got Secure No Man's Land. He could only get the 2 points. He could get 9 points for his primaries. And then we just kind of were like, he was like, I don't know, man. Can I kill this? Can I kill that? And I was like, Alex, honestly, like, there's nothing we can do that's going to get you ahead of me. I'll just give you max points for the no prisoners. I think you can kill like a witch and Lilith with a knight. Seems reasonable. And, like, you literally have to kill like my scourges with one of your little knights. I think you can do this. And he was like, oh, okay. But our final score was 63-57. And like I said, it was very interesting. The thing that stood out to me was that round 3, where he drew Area Denial and he drew Deploy Teleport Homers. And he would have had to have moved that knight into the middle and then also deploy Teleport Homers with that knight because the other guy just couldn't get there. He would have had to have advanced just to get within 6, let alone wholly within 6 for Area Denial, and he didn't have any assault weapons. So it was one of those, like, the big knight had to be the one to do it, and he just wasn't willing to give up a turn of interacting with the big knight in order to score those points. And I don't think it was necessarily the worst decision, because what was over here were 3 total Talos. I brought them in turn, I think 2. I brought one in here, and then he had a little knight here, and he's like, oh, I'm going to overwatch him. And I was like, yeah, I know. He's like, I'll probably roll 2 1s. And I was like, nah, you'll roll 2 6s. You've got sustained hits. You're going to end up getting 4 hits on me. And he was just like, dude. And then, sure as shit, man, he rolled 2 6s. And it's one of those, like I just hate Overwatch. And it's really hard for me sometimes to just, like, it's in the game, buddy. Like, you just have to accept it. Like, it's a shitty interaction, but it's where we're at. So he ended up killing 1 Talos, though, because, like, he did get 4 hits. He ended up getting 3 wounds. I ended up making 1 save, and then he rolled really poorly on the damage, and then I rolled pretty well on the feel no pains, and he killed 1 Talos, leaving 1 left. And I was like, well, if there's 1 left, right, I'll just put the other 2 here then. my unit of 2, and then we just dumped into him with the Talos in the next shooting phase, and he was just like, "Oh, those things are stupid." And I was like, "Yeah." So really what ended up happening was when the area denial came up, he decided, "I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to get rid of these Talos instead of scoring my secondary points here." So again, I don't know that it was the wrong decision per se. Like, yes, in retrospect it was, cuz like 8 points was a big swing, but at the same time, if he doesn't come this way, I now have 3 Talos that are going wherever they want, and there's nothing he can do about it. He ended up moving this night in his movement phase, the little one, and I ended up overwatching it because it only had 1 wound left. I ended up overwatching it with the unit of 2, and then I got 2 wounds through. Like, I got 2 6s on my hit rolls. Like, I also got the box cars and got lucky. The only difference is, like, bro, you don't get a save and it's a flat 3 damage. Sorry. So it's one of those, like, he just, like, picked that up instantly. And then, if he didn't have that big night over here, it would have been a very bad, bad day for him. Because again, like, now I can just kind of keep moving this way and push into his backfield, take his objective back here, and there's nothing he could have done about it other than just be like, "Oh, I guess those things are going to be in my butt." So, like I said, I understood his thought process. In retrospect, we both went, "Yeah, that's probably what did it." But at the same time, if he'd have dumped that knight in the middle of the table, he'd have picked that big knight up immediately, because that's kind of how the game was. It was like a very big game of chicken, and it was like, who's willing to send something out, who's willing to get it picked up, and I ended up winning the chicken game because it was like, I can throw a Ravager out there, it'll do enough damage that you have to respect it, and then you have to commit to it, and then once you poke out, I can then throw 8 Scourges at it, and the 8 Scourges may not kill it, but you won't be able to shoot at the Scourges, and it's going to make you poke your head back in if they don't kill it. And that's pretty much what happened. Is I shot him, and he was like, I'm going to kill that thing. And then the Scourges came out, and I was just like, cool, now we're moving 6 inches. And he was just like, oh my gosh. So it's just one of those, like, again, he did a very good job for somebody who's not played against Drukhari in 10th. And not that Drukhari are, like, good, but they do have some neat tricks and gimmicks that we can do. And he has seen me play before, which does help him because he's like, okay, I know how this guy plays. I know if I go into this, because, like, if you look, this lane is massive with this. So as soon as, like, he walks into this lane, because that was the first thing that happened, was he walked something into this lane, and I was just like, cool, man, Scourge is back. Bye. And he was just like, oh, no, I will not go in that lane again. So again, like, he played it well, he learned well. It's just one of those, like I said, like, in the end, um, I put him in a position to make some really hard choices, and those choices just didn't pan out for him, man. Like, that's it. That's all there is to it. Again, big shout out to him. He was a real fun guy to play with, real nice kid. And I don't mean that in a, like, a derogatory way. I think he's like half my age, like, legitimately. So when I say kid, it's just because, like, gosh, I don't know that I don't know that he's 25 yet. So that does put me in second place right now. I will either be playing. I'm playing T Suns, and I'm either playing for first, or I will finish first, second, or third, regardless of how everything shakes out. Just because if I win, I'll have first place. Nothing can be done about it, because the way the pairings and the standings are set up, it's like a strength of schedule, etc. So if I win, I'll have first place. If I lose, I'll either have second place, because there's one other undefeated. So if I lose and the other undefeated wins, the other undefeated will take second and I'll get bumped to third. And then if I lose and then he loses, I'm in second place because of the way, like I said, everything is set up. That being said, let's go ahead and do a preview on the next matchup. While we're all here and hanging out and doing this, I've got the chat minimized real quick while I pull it up. I don't know much about Thousand Suns, so we're gonna learn together. You're welcome for that. All right. All right. Let's see. What's the mission? Let's pull that up too so we can see what we're getting into. Something poopy. Search and destroy. We are using terrain layout 4, so it's the same layout we just looked at. But it's going to have, let's see. It'll have the one objective. It's the one, oh, imagine. So you'll have the objective here. There's one like here, 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 and here. And then it's the boop, 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 boop. So it's going to be that one. It's search and destroy. We have targets of opportunity. You get to carry an extra card. Okay. So you can draw. If a player is using tactical missions, and each time the player determines which secondary missions are active for them, if they have fewer than 3, they draw until they have 3. And then if a player is using, okay, yep. So you just play with three tactical mission cards. That could be bad for me, just because of the way I play. It does give me 2 and 1 to discard, but the downside is it gives my opponent 3. So if they're very able to score 3, it could be very rough. And then take and hold is, I think that's just like old ass 40k. Yeah, it's just like 9th ed 40k, right? You score 5 points for every objective you control, up to 15 per turn. And then the player who has first turn, second player. So if you go second, you score at the end of the turn on round 5. So yeah, it's just like 9th ed scoring, basically. So it's one like the primaries are going to be weird. Because again, I don't. I feel like, and I'm probably not alone, but I feel like primaries are where we struggle as an army. Uh, you know, getting a lot. There aren't many games where I'm capping primaries. And a lot of it's because like, man, I'm just gonna hold the bare minimum for probably 2 turns and just hope that I can make those points up later. And that's worked so far. But I've had games where I'm like, man, I guess if I could have held objectives earlier, I probably would have won. So that's the missions. I'll do tactical. I'm sure do tactical. I don't know. I assume so. But let's take a look. He's Cult of Magic, an exalted sorcerer who's got a force weapon, Prosperine Kopesh. These are all kind of words. Let's just pull them up because I don't know what any of this stuff is. The Prosperine Kopesh. I don't even know what that means. Exalted Saucier. I'm assuming it's just his melee weapon. He's got a force weapon and a Kopesh. So yeah, it's just like their master-crafted power swords type of thing. Thousand Sons are my second army. Yeah, good to know. Nice. That's right. I forgot. What are you using for your chimeras again? I don't remember. I think we had talked about that though. Uh, let's see. What does he do? While he's leading a unit, they get a 4-up invuln. Nice. Not my favorite to have to deal with, but I get it. In your command phase, if this model is leading a unit, you can roll a d6. On a 1, it suffers d3 mortal wounds. On a 2 through 5, you can put a bodyguard model back. And on a 6, you can put 2 bodyguard models back. Okay. This one joins the rubric and lets him pick up and redeploy once per turn. Or once per game, even if held by witches. Right, because it's not a fallback. The rubric overwatches are horrifying with the flamers. I have 6 original Oh, dude, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. I need to order some stuff and start like getting my proxy stuff going again. So this handsome fella, is that his enhancement that lets him teleport? The umbrellific crystal? Sometimes, man, it's like, I don't even know what this means. Once per battle in your command phase and movement. Yep, okay. So he's going to put them in a unit. They're going to teleport once per game. And that is in his command phase, and then they come down in his next movement phase. Good to know. Another exalted sorcerer with forbidden lore. Ooh. Lord of forbidden lore. The bearer can be selected to use a ritual, even if okay. And the rituals are like when you spend the Cabal points. I have played against them a few times. It's just been a while. Exalted Sorcerer on Disc of Zinch. And who? I assume the sorcerers can they go into any unit? Thousand Suns. Any unit is probably not the right way to say that, but Exalted Sorcerer. Leader. Rubrics. All right, what about on the disc? Rubrics. Okay. Uh, at the end of your movement phase, you can select one enemy unit within 18 of and visible and roll a d6. On a 1, the Psyker suffers d3 mortal wounds. On a 2-up, have the movement characteristics of models in that unit and have the advance and charge rules. Uh, thank God I'm not going to have a lot of infantry on the table, right? Because that's kind of poopy, and I don't like it. Let's see. I have original. You got to read their Kabbalistic. Yeah, and I remember because like that's what I remember the most is like, oh, I spend points and I get to do this. He could, for example, redeploy and move twice before shooting. Probably will double doom bolt you all game. Yeah, like I said, that's what I remembered was like, oh yeah, they just have like this weird extra like shooting phase. Army rules. 2 Cabal points. You can re-roll a saving throw. 5 Cabal points. Is this warp time? Yeah, it's warp time. Okay. 6 Cabal points. Use this ritual at the start of any phase. Once this phase, you can select the Psyker's unit as the target of a stratagem for 0 CP. Okay. Cool. Doombolt 7. Wow. That's that's a nice interaction. I remember Doombolt now though. Yeah, Psyker model only. And if I remember right, do they still have that interaction where only the sergeants have the Psyker keyword? Or does the whole unit have it for the rubrics? The aspiring sorcerer. So only for the sergeants. Gotcha. Okay. Exalted. Oh my god. Why is it so many characters? Is this like a normal list? Is this what T-Sun's list look like? Jesus. I assume this is just so he can like continuously double up on stuff, and just like the crazy amount of Cabal points that you could get from this. I like I the Zangor Shaman I assume is like a utility pick because they move 10, they're 60 points. Abilities, leader, Cabal of Sorcerers. They give him a Cabal point. It gives the unit a 5 of Feel No Pain. Okay. Yeah, I know about that one also, because that's the one where I was like, oh, god dang. This is because it's only their psychic weapons that get it, if I remember right. But if I remember right, Magnus has got like a friggin' massive, massive rod for psychic attacks. Definitely for psychic attacks. Uh, strats. Cult of Magic, stratagems. Warp Sight. One. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly T-Sun Psyker model, so it's only Psyker models, makes an attack with a psychic weapon that targets the enemy unit, that attack has the indirect fire and ignores cover abilities. And I think that's a Magnus, like, Zangor is their spotter for the strat. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because he's got a 3D 3 shot, strength 9, neg 2, 3 damage psychic attack with dev wounds. Yeah. Or if my infantry's on the table, you take the d6 plus 3 blast. All right, I can get behind this. The real question is, how many 4-up invulns do you think Magnus can make? Good to know. Good to know that it's not a battle tactic. Actually, I should look and see all psychers benefit. Yep. Oh, he gets both. I see what you're saying. Psychic weapons, all of them benefit. He doesn't pick one weapon. I see. I see. All right. So, Thousand Suns. What did I need to look at? Does he have battle tactics stratagems? That's the real question. Index. Cult of Magic. Stratagems. Are you a battle tactic? You're an epic deed. You're an epic deed. So the Cult of Magic is a battle tactic. 1,000 Sun Psyker from your army that has not been selected to shoot. It doesn't matter. My Archon's not going to be on the table, so it's not going to matter. Does he have Terminators? Yeah, let's find out. I didn't get that far down. I got derailed. One, two, three, four, 4 units of rubrics. No. We've got some cultists. Zangor Enlightened, which I don't know what those are. I'll have to look. They move 10 inches. Once per turn, when an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move within 9 of this unit, it can move d6 inches as if it were your movement phase. Are they infantry? They're mounted? Yeah. What's their toughness? T4. It matters because he can double on his battle tactics with Cabal. It does, but it's one of those. I can't do anything about that other than just try to kill his wizards. So I'm hopeful that I can. Yep. I'm hopeful that I can trade him early with like my 5-man of witches with no characters, kind of send them up, tag some of this like faster stuff, and just be like, all right, cool, man. Yeah. They just don't have heat lances, I hope. So devastating sorcery looks to be the only thing he could double up on. Which is until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a psychic attack, you reroll the hit and the wound roll, which is still good. Especially if you're going to ignore line of sight. Like, I assume that's where we're doubling up on that. Is like, I'm going to ignore line of sight with this unit, and then this unit is going to reroll hits and wounds. I'll be curious to see, because, like, the Flamers are what, strength 4? Let's see what we got here. So this is a 5-man with Warp Flamers. Ignores cover, strength 4, neg 1. Okay. So the Flamers, like, yes, they're good Overwatch, but they're basically the same thing they've always been. Interesting. And then this has got an icon. What's the icon do? Let's see. That's got to be a war gear. Oh, okay. It's just like old Blade Artisans, but for shooting. Good thing it won't matter, G. You could have neg a million. I'm still just rolling 6 up invulns. And his tactic will be taking mid with the chaff, force you to expose and counter you. If you don't, he will send out a character to act as spotter and no line of sight you. Yep. And so like that's kind of what I'm seeing also. And so what I'm gonna be probably looking to do is make sure, like, I think the Scourge, man, I'm looking at this. I think the Scourges may start in Deep Strike. I don't think I need them in Deep Strike, but I think simply having them in Deep Strike can keep some pressure on him so that he's got to be a little bit more cagey, because knowing that they could just come down anywhere and be like, all right, here's 4 Dark Lances. How many 4-up invulns can you make? You know, like that type of interaction might be enough. Teleport. Teleport. Yep. Uh, and that's where like my mandrakes come into play, man. Like my mandrakes are not there to score. They have never been in my list to score. They are there to prevent alpha strikes, and they are there to protect me. So if I deploy in a specific way and I throw those mandrakes down, if he jumps and he takes what I give him, then that's perfect, because it's one of those where, cool, I will intentionally set up my succubus so that if he does jump, yeah, and that's fair. And if Magnus just sits on the backfield objective the whole game, that's fine with me, because then I can just kill everything else. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Is like, okay, if Magnus is just gonna like kind of chill out in the back, then I don't have to mess with him, and I am fine with that. Um, I feel like this is going to be very similar to the Knights game, where he and I are probably going to have a couple turns of like feeling each other out and trying to figure out where to go. Like I said, so if we look at the do I still have my board up? Yeah. So like I'm not going to change anything right now. Beep 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 beep. But what I would probably be looking to do is like understanding what deployment zone we've got, etc. Like if he is going to just, like, if we've got this quarter, um, I will probably use my mandrakes kind of like here as some sort of bubble screen. I'll have to measure it out and figure it out. But if I do him there as like a bubble screen, because he can't be in my deploy. Well, yeah, he can, because it's a teleport. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. He can teleport a flame unit after doom bolting it twice, and then OW. Well, and that's where, like I said, like if I can force his flame unit into a spot where I want them, I can send the succubus, and he can't overwatch the succubus. And 5 witches in the succubus may or may not kill all 5 of those rubrics. Let me see. I see what you're saying. I see. Let me see. Thousand Suns, Army Rules, Detachments, Cult of Magic. No, I needed Army Rules. There we go. Because that was Echoes of Warp. No. Temporal Surge. I see. Uh, is there a range on this that you have to be within? If your army faction has T-Suns at the end of your command phase, each model 2 Cabal points. The combined total of these during the battle round, you can use these rituals deducting. Okay. Okay. So it applies to the Psyker. I was just reading that, sorry. But no, yeah, no, I get what you're saying now. Because but he can only teleport once. So even if he teleports and kills a transport, like, cool. He cannot teleport again. Because that's an enhancement, right? And that was which one? The teleport is what I'm looking at, not the move. Umbralific Crystal. Once per battle in your command phase, you can move this. Okay. So yeah, he can only teleport once. Yes, he could move a unit twice, but he could only teleport once. So it'll really just, I'll have to be mindful of where the teleport's at and how many flame units does he have? Because he's got, what, 4 rubric squads? 1. That has 3 flamers. That has 3 flamers. So they all have flamers. Okay. Okay. But it's probably this one that's getting the teleport. So that makes sense. And really, that just means, okay, I can't screen him. You are correct. But what do they move? 5 or 6 rubrics? 5. So he's only getting 10 to 15 inches of movement. Have super flamers. Yeah, I do remember that. They are super flamers. This will be interesting. It'll be interesting. Because it's one of those armies that's going to be like orcs. You know, like you look at orcs and you're like, oh, these guys are slow. But they're not. Like, they're like very deceptive with their speed because of the temporal surge and the I can teleport this dude and things of that nature. So it'll be an interesting game. Be curious to kind of like I look forward to it. The dude's a great dude. I've played multiple games with him. He's a lot of fun. So it's one of those like it'll be an interesting game, and I'll be curious to see how it goes. Because that's like what I'm gonna end up having to do is like that succubus is probably gonna have to do a lot of work into some of these squads, just because it's like okay, uh, and this might actually be the game where I start using a lot more of the vicious blades or whatever it's called, where you can charge and then roll your mortal wound dice after your boat swings. Like this could end up being that game where I finally use that strat. Because then it's like, okay, I'll just charge you, and then if I have the CP, I'll tank shock you, and then if I have the CP, I'll do this, and we'll just see how many mortal wounds I can get on you rather than let you overwatch my units. You know. And the other thing too is that like if he's got lone characters floating around, being able to send witches, just like bare bones witches, nothing on them, just send them out there with a venom. And the venom cannons will be handy. This is going to be a matchup where the venom cannons are going to be nice because it's going to be a lot of like, hey, how many 4-ups can you make? Because everyone you fail is going to be a dead marine, you know. So again, like yes, he's going to have some mobility, but hopefully between the liquefiers on the Talos and like the venom cannons on the or the not venom cannons, splinter cannons on the venoms, hopefully we can kind of make that work. Right. Yep. Yep. And it's only psychic, so that'll be interesting. Psychic weapons. Because like the flamers aren't psychic. Stage an attack and run away behind line of sight. Yep. Yeah, and it's one of those where I think that's going to be a lot of what I'm doing is just like setting up somewhere in the boat behind terrain. Again, if we're like looking at the map, trying to maybe like set up a boat behind this, get them out, get them right on the wall, try to make that charge type of thing, and then do the seat strat where I can hop back in the boat even. It'll like I'm pretty excited. I like seeing armies that I don't get to see a lot because a couple of the big chaos players that we had locally have moved away, so I don't get to see a lot of like the Death Guard and the T Suns anymore. This is definitely a match where I wish I'd have had my Disintegrator Cannon Ravager and not my Dark Lance Ravager, and I knew that was going to be the case, man. I thought to myself, man, I'm going to have at least one round where I'm like, Jesus, I should have brought the Disintegrator Cannon, and really I've had two. The Marine round wasn't too bad, but the Night round was the only round where I was like, man, am I glad I have this. So I look forward to it. We're playing Monday, and then I'll do a recap on that Tuesday. Danger is my middle name. That's not true. I won't like that tactic. Well, now I'm intrigued. You gotta tell me. You can't leave me hanging. Why is this not doing its thing? No, absolutely not. I mean, it really just depends on how the flow of the game is. You know, if the game kind of flows that direction, I may. But uh, we'll see. We'll see. But what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it up here. I've got to go pick up a kid from school here. I was glad to be able to do my recap and kind of do our preview on the next round. Kaleth, I appreciate the insight. Again, it's not a army that I get to see a lot. He's actually the only local Two Sons player that I know of at this point. Well, I guess he's one of two of them, but he was playing NIDS for a long time. So, again, thanks a lot. You guys have a good one. Enjoy the